Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully you'll be edified with what we've put together for you here. And for this video, I'd like to share with all of you a part of my interview with Father Joshua Waltz. He's great, and I'm so grateful that even though he's busy, he was willing to do the interview for more than an hour, and I really enjoyed talking to him. Anyway, during the interview, I asked him about his experience helping out the exorcism team, and some of you have probably heard this story in another video. But I specifically requested that he shares the story with all of you here. It's interesting to hear his side of the story because he's not an exorcist, and I think you're going to love this one.
There's two different stories. You know, the one actually the one you might be referencing. It was this guy, this guy down in Guatemala. Great guy. You know, I used to take high school kids down to Guatemala all the time, and we would go down, work with the God's Child Project, and we build homes for people. The God's Child Project wasn't really all that Catholic. It was at the beginning, and then it kind of switched. But it was good for the kids because they got, you know, like it could be as Catholic as I made it because I was kind of in charge of the whole trip. So we had mass every day. We went to orphanages and we built homes and we did all this stuff. And we one night we went to this homeless shelter, and we went every year, and it was a really weird place. Like they would check their knives, their drugs, their guns at the door, and then they could come in and spend the night and have a nice meal and sleep. And so we went in there, and yeah, there was this one guy in there, and we met him every year. And every year he told us all these stories. You know, one year he was with the Coast Guard. This is a Guatemalan, right? Worked for the U.S. Coast Guard, so that's clearly untrue. The one year he was a Navy SEAL at one point. He was a Green Beret at one point. His story just kept changing, and I talked to the guys, and I was like, "What's going on with this guy?" And he's like, "Well, he's just, you know, he's an alcoholic. He's drugs. He's abandoned his family, whatever, and he's just been here for whatever 5 years." So one year we were down there, and my buddy Doug, he's like, "Hey," and he was talking to him. He's like, you should pray over him." And I'm like, "Okay, I got no problem praying over people." So I'm praying over this guy, and I'm like, "Lord, you know, we ask for deliverance and that you know, for your beloved son, and if there's any spirits of, you know, alcoholism or drugs or whatever," I'm like, "in the name of Jesus, be gone from this man." And all of a sudden this dude went ballistic. Like, and he was a little guy, you know, and my buddy Doug's a pretty freaking big guy. And he's like grabbing him, and he's like, this guy's coming at me like and this was the nicest, you know, little calm guy that always made jokes. And he just flipped, and he's like screaming, and Doug is in the middle, like he's holding him on this side, and he's got me on this side trying to hold us apart. And I'm looking at him, and Doug's like, "Finish the prayer," you know? Like, so I finish, and I keep praying over the guy, and I'm like, just, I don't know, in the name of Jesus, casting out whatever's in this dude. And all of a sudden he just like, it just stops. He just like drops, and he's on the ground. He's like this ghostly pale white. And I mean, he looked dead. And I'm like, "Oh no, you know, like I killed him." But you know, he's laying on the ground, and then all of a sudden he kind of like comes to, and you know, where he doesn't know where he is. And anyway, so that was kind of like the ordeal. Well, then the next year when we came back, he wasn't there. And I talked to the guys that were there, and I'm like, you know, "Hey, where is this guy?" And they're like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "After you guys prayed with him, like he cleaned up his life, went back to his family. So he's back with his family. He's free of alcohol, free of drugs. You know, it's been over a year." And so yeah, he's just totally set free, you know. So I don't know, you know, it's power of Jesus' name. But the other one was when it was here in the Bismarck Mandan area, and I was writing my homily one night, and this person came down the hallway. They're like, "Hey, Father, just let you know if you hear anything, like we're going to be in this room, and we're going to be doing a deliverance. We're doing deliverance ministry." I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So I'm like typing my homily, you know, working on my office, and all of a sudden, like, I hear the most like blood curdling screams and howls and voices, and I'm like, you know, I'm like typing. I'm like, at one point, I'm like, "Well, what? You can't write a homily." Well, that's going on, you know. So I'm like sitting there trying to like, I don't know, like get focused. And all of a sudden the door like flies open and this person's like just, sweating. And they're like, we need your help. And I'm like, with what? And they're like, we have an exorcism going on. I'm like, oh shoot. Like, okay. Like, and I'm like, okay, so like they take me down and I walk in and there's 4 guys that are on top of this, like kind of holding this woman down. This woman, I don't know, she's probably 60 something and like maybe like 5'2", 5'3", 120 pounds. I mean, this is not a big person. And I'm like getting down and I like get behind her and I get her like, so I'm like doing like a full Nelson on her, like just holding her like that because she's screaming like these guttural screams and like multiple voices at the same time. Really weird, like different octaves of vocal dynamic, I guess. Screaming, growling, whatever. And like I'm just hanging on with all of my might. And like she gets loose at one point and grabs this guy like that's holding onto her and just was like, like, I mean, this dude flies like 3 feet, 4 feet backward. And I'm like, there's no way this little old woman could pick up a grown man and throw him, And so I'm like, we're dealing with something really, really, supernatural here. And, everybody's like, they always want to hear these stories, especially when I teach a confirmation or the high school. They always want to hear about the devil. And I'm like, you guys, like that entire time that I was in that exorcism, it was not fun. There's nothing fun about it. And that's what I hate about, scary movies and all that stuff. It's like this pop. So you want to be scared and because you're going to be safe. With the devil, there's nothing scary about the devil. He's just incredibly miserable and sad and, deprived of goodness and despairing. And like, I don't know how to really capture like how dark and without joy this person was. Like, it was not scary. I was not scared the entire time. I was brought to tears numerous times because this poor little woman was just possessed by this malicious thing that hated her and hated me and hated itself. Like, but yeah, anyway, so at one point, as the exorcist is praying the prayer, she like wrenches backwards. Like, I mean, this is like a contortion I've never seen. Like, it was like should have broke stuff and started coughing like uncontrollably. And like as she coughed, like the whole room smelled like alcohol. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And the exorcist, he's like, we just expelled the demon of alcoholism, which was rampant in her life. So then anyway, so this went on for like an hour. Give me an idea of like the power and the strength. When I woke up the next day, so from here to here, here to here, I was black and blue because that's how hard I was holding on. And yeah, I didn't hear anything from her or anything else because I wasn't on the Exorcist team or anything. I just got pulled in for that one. Well, like a year or 2 years later, I don't know what it was. I'm in the supermarket and I see her. So she's checking out and I'm checking out and she like looks back and she looks at me and she kind of smiles and I'm like, oh no. And she's like, and I look at her I must have got like wide eyed and she's like, Father. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I'm healed. And I'm like, no way. Like it was just this really beautiful moment that she had been healed from. And yeah, it's real. It's really real. And I've had several experiences of it. And yeah, I we say that evil is a privation of good. What that means is it's a lacking of good. It takes a good thing, it's like a parasite, it latches onto it and it makes it less good. So the demonic, the devil himself, they're so deprived of goodness that they're almost nothing. If you ever read C.S. Lewis, The Great Divorce, there's this great point when they're in this huge area, and this massive in the kingdom up in the mountains, and it's kind of like, depending on how you read it, it's like purgatory, is where they're at, and they're like, and they had come from this dark town, right, which is seemingly hell, And the man, the soul that's there, he's like, it's this super expansive town, right? It goes out forever. And then when they take this bus, and people probably don't know what the hell I'm talking about now, but if you read the book, you'll know it. He takes this bus and he gets up and it gets brighter and brighter, and then they're kind of in this place. But he talks to an angel at the end of this thing, and he says, he's like, so if the mountains are the celestial city or the heavenly kingdom, he's like, where did we come from before we got here? And the angel points at a crack in the ground, like a little crack. And he's like, there. Because hell is almost so much, it's so much of like nothing. We don't realize how expansive heaven is, how expansive the joy of Christianity is, and how deprived evil is of goodness. And that's why people, as they get deeper and deeper and deeper into sin, they experience less and less and less joy, because they're approaching nothingness. And they also experience less and less meaning, because they're approaching nothingness. That's why Paul says the wages of sin is death. I mean, he's talking about spiritual death for sure, but then it's going to be physical death. Once you lose a meaning to live, like, you don't want to live anymore. So, yeah.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this interview. If you have any suggestion about any other priest I should interview next, please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, if you'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below. And from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, stay safe, stay healthy, and may God bless you.